Greetings, members, one and all of the Salivation Nation, keeping silver alive in 2020. Let's explore. "2020 has been quite an interesting year. We've had a lot going on this year, even before the pandemic, with trade deals with China, geopolitical tensions, repurchase agreements for the Federal Reserve and the like, and just overall uncertainty. Many people were expecting some sort of recession before the pandemic started to either occur by the end of 2020 or into next year. But nonetheless, there's been a lot of optimism and hope as well. But one thing is for sure, silver did not do a whole lot before this pandemic. And then when the pandemic hit, well, there was a lot of selling of exchange-traded funds, both in gold and silver, but especially silver got hit. And it was pinching pennies, indeed, pinching them very hard as we saw the price dip down to below $12 an ounce on the electronic markets. Make no mistake, there was a big rush for silver bullion out there, and premiums for the metal went up a lot. But even those increased premiums did not really result in silver being much more in terms of the price than it was before the pandemic. We did see a little bit of an increase, but with how gold has performed compared to silver in that regard, it has become quite apparent that silver really is being held down by the dollar, and in this case, even down by the cent. And so, what does that mean for us? You know, a lot of people have been very frustrated and concerned about where silver is going. Well, and the thing is we really don't know. It's at this point very difficult to predict that it will catch up to gold anytime soon. And how do we measure that? Well, we measure it by the gold to silver ratio. You may remember a video I posted a while ago where I'd mentioned that there were actually 4 gold to silver ratios, and that is something that we'll post a link to at the end screen of this video. But nonetheless, by any measure, essentially, the gold to silver ratio is high. Even if you measure by all 4 accounts compared to really what would be considered somewhat of a normal ratio before in recent years here. But nonetheless, silver is a metal that is essentially is a bargain right now in terms of where the price is compared to gold. But will it perform with gold down the road? That is the question that many of us are starting to have doubts about. And in that way, in some ways, we must essentially think of silver independently from gold in that regard. It is no secret that silver is seen as a commodity just as much, if not more so, than as money. And I like to refer to silver as hibernating money. Yes, that's right. It is kind of in hibernation mode out there because it's not being utilized as currency. Central banks don't store the metal, but nonetheless, I believe that it is seen as a valuable asset in history. It kind of what guides us for silver being utilized as money. It has a potential future in that regard as well as technology increases in terms of utilization in order to back up some sort of either cryptocurrency of some sort and or even tied to a new form of a reset dollar of some sort. How that will play compared to gold, or could we go to a bimetallic standard at some point? That is quite a possibility, at least those 2 metals being applied as a part of a rules-based monetary system, which I think essentially is what we do need, because we do have a dollar that is in somewhat of a disarray. People have faith in it now. Why? Because over 60% of nations around the world utilize it for transactions between nations, and obviously it is the world's premier reserve currency by the IMF, with a breadbasket of a handful of other currencies out there. And it is the strongest of all of those out there. But that does not mean that it cannot be eroded away, and it has been tried, and I believe they will continue to try. The IMF and other nations around the world will try to, quote, gang up on the dollar. I actually spoke about that several years ago as quite a possibility that these currencies can gang up on the dollar. I believe other nations around the world holding gold in central banks and trying to find a way to position themselves as a foundation of strength with increasing their gold holdings in their central banks. How will that affect silver? I believe positively, because as the other currencies start to lose value and the dollar starts to lose its status around the world, that can only bode well for silver, even if you treat it as a commodity down the road. And the reason why we are seeing here, you can see here, this is a 2020 dated Silver Eagle, and these are 2020 dated Lincoln Cents. And I wanted to show, because this is quite an interesting display, because the cent is the smallest unit of measure for circulating currency in the United States today. The United States American Silver Eagle is the smallest unit of precious metal bullion coin that is not in circulation, but it is legal tender and it is recognized around the world. The smallest unit of each. And there's something to be said for the dollar. There's something to be said for every denomination in the that is derived from it, including down to the cent. They have value. And silver is one of those metals that it certainly does have value. I think everybody can agree upon that. The Lincoln cent is as well. But how many of us, when we see one of these laying on the street, bend down to pick it up? I do. I still do. This has value. Now, this particular coin right here has a very small layer of copper coating over zinc. In fact, by some estimates, it costs just about as much to mint this coin as the value of the coin itself. But by and large, we're getting a deal when we pick one of these up for that closeness in value. By now, if you take a look at where zinc is priced and where copper is priced, it may be that those metals are cheaper than 1 cent. So this may cost less than a cent to produce, but nonetheless, it's much closer now than it really should be. And there was a time when it was a lot more, 2011, 2012, and the like. But nonetheless, this is a foundation. The cent, the smallest unit of measure. And you pack up enough of these coins, and, it's going to form a dollar. It takes 100 of these coins. And the dollar is the standard, is the foundation for the world's reserve currency, the $1 bill here. In due course, you stack up enough of these dollars, well, you're going to have enough to buy one of these, the American Silver Eagle. And that coin is the foundation, I believe, of circulating coinage throughout American history, for the most of American history, if you think about it. It is only since 1965 that we've really stopped using pure or coin silver. It is, that's 90% silver in our circulating money. But nonetheless, I believe silver is money, and I believe that right now, at this moment in time, considering where the price is, it is somewhat of a bargain. Now, as you know, I have been concentrating on gold, and I've been doing that really since about 2017, buying more gold than silver. But I still buy some silver, but when I do buy it, I buy it with the understanding that it could go down in price or it could go up in price. But where the prices are now, and with premiums starting to come down now for silver coins, I believe it's a good opportunity to pick up a little bit more silver, and with much less risk of losing your shirt, so to speak, especially considering that premiums are smaller. now than at any other time. Why? Because I believe we are poised for an increase in gold prices, especially. But I think along that line, we will see silver rise as well. Now, it may not squeeze that ratio between gold and silver down much below 100. But if it does, then I believe that we will have provided an opportunity. I believe it's less risky right now to buy silver than it was even 6-8 months ago, or when it was $18 before. And so that's why I never discourage my viewers from buying silver. But one thing I do like to encourage my viewers is to diversify into gold, because these small units of measure, $1 for the silver, 1 cent for the pennies, even though technically these are not pennies, they are cents, is there's smaller measurements of gold out there. The 1/10 of an ounce gold coin is the smallest unit of measure for the gold, but carries a relatively high premium compared to the other sizes or other denominations. But even as such, it is attainable, and there was a time when you can find deals on those. But I do believe in diversification and finding low premium, recognizable, so that would really be eagles. If you can find quarter ounce or half ounce eagles at a decent price, it is encouraged to go for those if you're on a limited budget. But every little bit helps. Every cent gets you closer to that goal. And that's the message of this video. And so I would like to encourage you guys to continue to press on, as we are living in uncertain times for sure. My prayers are that we get through this pandemic. My prayers are that the economy recovers. As much as the optimists believe, I have hope for it, but I think there are some cracks in the armor there, and I think there's some things that are unsustainable that we are dealing with, which is why we accumulate precious metals. They act as the ultimate hedge against economic instability. And silver is a hedge, but I believe gold is the ultimate hedge, as a reminder. But we still have faith in the dollar. Why? Because of its fiat designation. That's one thing that I want to make absolutely clear, folks. We have faith in the dollar. Every single one of us has faith in the dollar because we utilize it to not only purchase goods and services that we need to survive, but also these precious metals. And as long as they are in effect and utilization, we will continue to have those. We accumulate precious metals to hedge against the uncertainty of where the dollar will go because of what the Federal Reserve has been doing and what politicians have been supporting for so long by trying to print our way out of money troubles. We can only do that for so long, which is why I encourage folks to accumulate the truest form of money. That is gold and silver. I'd like to extend a multitude of gratitude to you all for taking the time to watch this video, and encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.